Good evening. Hope you're all doing well. Today we're learning Maseches Sanhedrin Daf Hey, and we're starting 2/3 of the way down. The first word on the line is the Alma. We're starting at the third word, at Udekule Alma. We spent the last shiur yesterday on Shabbos discussing the well-known machlokas of Yesh Em Mikra versus Yesh Em Masoras. Yesh Em Mikra is how the word is read, assuming that Chazal Ke'ilu put in Nekudos. And Yesh Em Masora says that we only look at how the word looks, irrelevant of what the vowelization is. And if a word appears to be singular, we'll read it as singular. And if a word appears to, let's say, basukos, but without a vav, looks like basukas, right? So do we say that, yes or no? Yesh Em Mikra versus Yesh Em Masoras. Yesterday, the Gemara made a tear that we definitely hold Yesh Em Mikra and gave a whole bunch of Marim Makomos and explained away all of the dissenting opinions from 5 cases, Reb Shimon, Rabbi Akiva, Beis Shammai, Beis Hillel, all these cases that we learned on the Yomad Aleph. The Gemara dispels all of those concerns and don't worry, we hold Yesh Em Mikra. And then the Gemara says, well, wait 1 second. Udukule Alma Yesh Em Mikra. I can show you, says the Gemara, that we don't always say Yesh Em Mikra. After all, we are on Dalet Amud Beis, 2/3 of the way down. We have a brisa. Latotafos. Hare kan arba divi Rabbi Shmuel. What do we see here? It's pronounced latotafos, right, in all 3 instances, but it's read as yesh aim lemasores latotafas 1, 2. And what does it say? Hare kan arba. The first 2 words are without the vav because that's how they're written. Yesh em lemasores. They're written without the vav. The last one's written with the vav. Hare kan arba. That's how we know that the shel rosh is divided into 4 distinct compartments. Unlike the shel yad, by the way, which, as I hope we all know, is one long roll of a parsha. All 4 parshas. Shema v'yem shmo kiddush v'yakov written on a long parchment. It's usually about this long, and they roll it up nice and tight in the shel yad, and they stick it in. Masha Enkein, by the batim, that's learned from here, totafos, from latotefes, hare kan arba de Rabbi Shmuel. Rabbi Kiva Omer eno tzarich, tat bekat vishtayim. The word totafos is a conjugation of 2 different words. Not only is it a conjugation of 2 different words, but it's 2 different words from 2 different languages, neither of which is Hebrew, which is what you were complaining about before. Tat bekat vishtayim. The word tat in katvi, which is a language, is 2, and pat be'afriki shtayim. I agree with you. I think it's weird. It's what it seems like. We had this already. Africa. What was this? What was the?
But this is the famous place that you see Africa.
Yeah, there was another place also. So what do we see from here? We see from here that Rabbi Shmuel definitely holds of Yesh Em L'Masoras. His counting shows us that he holds Yesh Em L'Masoras. So how can you say Dekule Alma? How can you say that everybody must hold Yesh Em L'Mikra? So then the Gemara tries and fails, tries to lay down the law. Lay down the law. Really, la'olam pligi, you're right. There is a machlokes of Yesh Em L'Mikra versus Yesh Em L'Masoras, but only in a limited scope. That's where the way we read it is different than the way that it appears. Aval hai chelev v'cholav v'chiadadeninu Yesh Em L'Mikra. When the words look different, latotafas versus latotafos, missing a vav, that's a machlokes. Yesh em lemikra, yesh em lemasoras. Machlokes. In this case, the machlokes would be between Rabbi Shmuel and Rabbi Akiva. However, says the Gemara, the Gemara tries to say that if the word looks exactly the same, lo svashel gedi bechalevimo, bechalevimo. How do we know which one? It says the Gemara that when they look exactly the same, yesh aim lemikra. That's interesting. And it seems to possibly solve all of our problems, except for one big problem. And it's a big enough problem that we're going to undo this answer. We wanted to say that there is a machlokes, yeshem lemikra, yeshem lemasoras, where the kra and the masoras are different, but where they're the same, we say yeshem lemikra, says the Gemara. But I'll bring you a riot that where they're exactly the same, that's not true. This is a pasuk that says that a person needs to show their face. Shalosh pa'amim bashana yera'eh chol zechurecha es panei ha'adon Hashem. Let's translate. 3 times in the year, yera'eh kol zechurecha. What does yera'eh mean? He should be seen. As opposed to yir'eh, text, he should see. Is it that I need to be seen, ki'ilu by HaKadosh Baruch Hu, or do I need to see the Makom HaMikdash? It's the same exact letters, Yud, Resh, Aleph, Hey. Is it Yera'eh, I shall be seen, he shall be seen, or he shall see? So says the Gemara, Yera'eh, Yireh, Dechi Hadadi Ninhu. These letters look exactly the same. Yera'eh and Yireh are identical. Upligi. And we still see that there are those who hold Yesh Ein Lemasoras. How do we know that this is true? Because look at this. Look at this fascinating drasha. The Tanya. The Brisa writes, Yochanan ben Dahavoy Omer Mishum Rabbi Yehuda ben Tema. Hasuma be'achas me'inav pater min hariyah. If a person is blind in one eye, and we learned this in another Masech, I think. Yeah. If a person is blind in one eye, they're pater. Shne'emar yera'eh, yir'eh. Kederach sheba lir'os, kach ba le'ra'os. What do we see? That we look at the word through both lenses, through yera'eh and yireh. That's how we read the word. We make a drasha based on yesh ein lemasoras, and therefore maliros b'shteinav afleiraos b'shteinav v'haraya we hold yesh ein lemasoras. So therefore, don't tell me that if the letters are the same chalev and chelev that we say yesh ein lemikra. That's not true, because yera'eh and yireh is the same letters, and we say yesh ein lemasoras. So the Gemara finally concludes, and it ends up the sugya for us. 3 lines from the bottom. Ella, Omar Rav Acha Bereder Rav Icha, Omar Kra, Lo Sivashel Gedi, Derech Bishel Asra Torah. It took me a while to figure out how this answers anything. But the Gemara, what it's saying is like this. How do we know that the word is chalav, chelev, as opposed to the chalev versus chelev? How do the pasuk is talking about chalev? Because it says bishul. Bishul is in a liquid medium. Chalev is a liquid. Chelev is a fat. It's a solid. So therefore, if the Torah is going to use the language of lo sivashel, it must be that it cannot be chelev because chelev is a fat. Therefore, it's not yeshem lemikra. Maybe we hold yeshem lemasoras, but there's no raya from here one way or the other. Lo sivashel gediba chalevimo has to be talking about milk, because there are no other liquid media in the body of a cow that fits the bill for a ches, a lamed, and a base. It has to be chalab. But who knows if it's yeshem lemikra? We have no idea anymore. This leads to a number of different halachos, some of which we spoke about earlier on Shabbos, about cooking in a liquid medium. What do you see if you cook with fat? It's not called bishul. So let's say I fry milk and meat with lard, kosher lard, right? With just fat. What is that, Crisco? I don't know. Tallow. I just read an article about tallow, by the way. It's apparently very good for you.
What tallow?
Not the fat piece. Tallow? It's tail fat from an animal. Yes.
Doesn't sound unhealthy.
Yeah. No, it doesn't. But the guy I followed on LinkedIn said nobody has a perfect diet anymore. Yeah, seriously. Hold on, I have to drink some Coke. Okay. Anyways, there's a whole bunch of diyunim here. What if you bake milk and meat together? What if you fry milk and meat together? What if you microwave milk and meat together? That was one of the shilas on my smicha test 20 years ago. If you have a bag of milk and meat and it's put into a microwave, I don't remember all the details anymore. But the case was trying to be done if microwaving is like bishul, like baking, or like frying. And the poskim discuss, mikrogal in Hebrew, the poskim discuss how do we, I don't remember the answer, and I don't know if I got it right or wrong, but I have to test it home. Somewhere. It's definitely not kosher. Yeah, it's definitely not kosher. The question is it us or ba'anah? Can you sell it to a guy? Can you? Yeah. I don't remember the answer though. Okay. That ends that sugya, which means that basically, just to summarize, what? It is time for new sugya because we haven't even started our daf yet, and we're 10 minutes in, 12 minutes in. Also, it means that the machlokes of yesh em lemikra, yesh em lemasoros applies everywhere. There are no limits. The machlokes applies both when the letters are the same and when the letters are not the same. So what are we doing with that? I'm sure. Keep going. No, it's Givaldic. We got a lot done there. Bottom line, Dalet Amud Beis, and which will bring us to our blot for the day today, says the Gemara. Tanu Rabbanan Dine Mamas B'Shlosha, like we know. When we are adjudicating cases of money, got to be three people. But if you're mamish a mumche to the rabbim, you are allowed to be done yourself. Says Rashi, Rashi says biyachid. Our Gemara says yachidi. Tichziv b'tzedek tishpot. Tzedek is in the singular because savar ein kan eru parshios. This connects back to another machlokas we have about whether or not we extend the rule of three to other scenarios. Our Gemara says that a mumche l'rabim is done afilu yachidi. Amar Rav Nachman kegon ana don dine mamanis biyachidi. Wow. V'chein Amar Rav Chia kegon ana don dine mamanis biyachidi. So Rav Nachman and Rav Chia, they were able to be done cases on their own in regards to Mamonis. So that means we have a little asterisk in our Mishnah from Daf Beis. The Mishnah on Daf Beis says, Dine Mamonis B'Shlosha. What's the asterisk? Unless you're a mumcha. And then you can paskin shailas on your own. We will soon see if you need to get permission to do this, but that is what the Gemara says. Ibaya lahu, 4 lines down. When they said Kigon Ana, like me, like I, who is such an expert in Hilch and Dinei Mamanis, is it the Gemirna, Visavirna, Vinakitna Rishusa? Is it that they learned and they knew how to say all the svaras, and they got Rishus from their Rebbe? Aval lo nakit Rishusa, Dinei lo dina. Do you need permission to be this person, to be able to paskin shilas by yourself? But if you don't get permission, your din is not a din. Odilma, or perhaps do we say, Afal gav de lo nakit Rishusa, Dinei dina? Or would we say that you're able to paskin these shilas even if you don't have permission? Let's say that I knew every shach and taz. I knew how to paskin any shilah, but I was a lone ranger. I never asked for shus. People line up, they ask me shilas. So, dine dina or dine lo dina. So says the Gemara, let's see if we can figure that. I don't have permission, right? So the Gemara says as follows, 7 lines down. Tashma. Tamar Zutra Beredi Rav Nachman, Don Dina Vita. He paskined the Shaila, but he paskined it incorrectly. So now the Baal Din was upset. He found out that that the answer was wrong. This happened to me once. I got a psak from someone here in Chicago, and I was in Shalvim at the time. Someone in Chicago gave me a psak that it's like the Intifada during my Shana Bet. My mom wanted me to carry a phone. I asked a Shaila to someone. They said you can carry a phone on Shabbos, and they compared it to a gun. So I mentioned it to one of my Rebbeim and Shalvim. They're like, that's not true. They didn't even bat an eyelash. They said that's not a gun because phones don't kill people. So buy a gun. You have svaras lakanu lakan. Fine. You can argue. Can you carry a gun? Yeah. All the posts can say yes because it's either. This is fascinating. Ray Robinson told me this. He said a gun is either a klisha malachto le'isr, because when the trigger is pulled, it creates an explosion, which is an isr d'oraisa, and when you need it, it's not muksa anymore. Or it's a klisha malachto leheter, or the fact that the gun exists. When you flash a gun, it instills enough fear in someone attacking you that they'll back off, and the use is simply having it, even without using it. One way or the other, the post can write that it's mutter. So let's say that I get this psak from a rabbi, you're allowed to carry your phone on Yantif for a reason of security, whatever the case may be, and it's wrong, and therefore, whatever, let's say in this case, money was lost. Also, the Kamid Rav Yosef. Amar Le, Rav Yosef says to the Baldin, Im kiblu chalayu lo teshalem. If you, the Baldin, accepted upon yourself whatever the outcome was of Mar Zutra, then the Dayan doesn't have to pay. V'ilo zil shlim. Shmamino, what do we see? Kilo nakit reshusa dine dina shmamino. As long as the Baldin accepted him, you're good to go. That din is a din. So let's say I did know every shach and taz. I can paskin any shaila that I like, and I know al kol kula on my fingertips. Technically, I don't have to answer shailas. I mean, I'm technically, excuse me, I don't have to ask rishus. I'm allowed to paskin whatever I want. I don't need smicha. Rabbi first told me he doesn't have smicha. Rav Moshe Feinstein told him he can paskin shailas. I think that works. I think that's sufficient. But he doesn't have a cloth hanging on his wall, I heard the Chavetz Chaim also apparently did not have a cloth. Again, he's a mumcha, so he can do whatever he wants, and no one's gonna say boo. Okay. Oh, I made some little typos in here. Okay. Says the Gemara. No, I didn't. Here we go. Amarab, a quarter of the way down. Haiman de boy lemedan dina. If there is a person who wants to judge a case by himself, vitami boy miftar, and he wants to be pater under all circumstances, not the previous circumstance where there's like a condition of even if the baal didn't accept it upon you. No matter what. And lishkol rishusa mi be resh galusa. Then he should get rishus from the resh galusa, from whoever is the big person in town. Now, what about the interchangeability of I got smicha? I'm going to use the word smicha here. It's not exactly the same. Let's say I got rishus to be a dayan in Bavel, and now I want to answer shilas in Eretz Yisrael, or vice versa. So it says the Gemara. Pshita, the following is obvious. We're a third of the way down on Hamid Aleph. Mehacha lahacha umehasam lahasam. Those cases are easy. If I get rishus to be a dayan in Bavel, I'm allowed to answer shilas in Bavel. If I get rishus in Eretz Yisrael to be a dayan, I'm allowed to answer shilas in Eretz Yisrael. Umehacha lahasam mahani. And if here in Bavel I received my rishus to become a dayan, and now I move to Eretz Yisrael, that's not a problem. Tehacha shevet v'hasam mechokek. Here in Bavel, it's considered a shevet, which is a higher level. V'hasam mechokek over there, it's just an engraving, right? It's just a smaller version. It's like embossing. It's like a lesser version of Bavel. Kedetanya. Lo yasser shevet mi Yehuda ilu roshe galio sheba Bavel sherodin es Yisrael b'shevet. They run a tight ship. They're stuck. They hold on. They make sure everybody keeps halacha properly. But what we do know is that for sure in that case, if I get my smicha in Bavel, I'm for sure allowed to be a posek in Eretz Yisrael. What we don't know is mehasam lahachamai. If a person got their smicha in Eretz Yisrael, can they then come to Bavel, as a lot of people did? We've seen them throughout Shas. Can they then come paskin in Bavel? Because, right? Yasser Shevet Yehuda. The Shevet was Bavel. They had a stronger hand. So that means seemingly the learning, I guess it's hard to say these words, but it seems like the learning was a little bit different in Eretz Yisrael than it was in Bavel. Tashma, let's see. Keep it back on here, just falling apart here. Says the Gemara, the Rabbi Bar Chana was from Eretz Yisrael, and he was living in Bavel. Dun Dina Vita, he made a mistake in Bavel. Wait 1 second. No. He was in Eretz Yisrael. That's correct. And he made a mistake, but he got his smicha hasam. Nope, sorry, saying it backwards. Again, I apologize. Halfway down. Mehasam from Eretz Yisrael. Lit hacha. He was from Eretz Yisrael and he was now in Bavel. So what's the din in such a case? He got his smicha in a lower place. Tashma. The Rabba Bar Chana done din of it. He made a mistake when he was in Bavel. Asa l'kamed de Reb Chia. And what did he say? What did Reb Chia say in regards to the mistake that Rabba Bar Chana made? Amarle ikiblu chalayhu lo teshalem ve'ilo zil shlim. He said it's not exactly the same scenario like we saw before where you're totally scot-free. It depends if the Baal Din accepted you as the Dayan. But why would you say that there's ever a scenario he'd be chayiv in? Why would he be chayiv at all? After all, he got rishus when he was in Eretz Yisrael. Shma mina mehasam lehacha lo mahani shma mina. We see that getting a smicha in Eretz Yisrael and then trying to be a posek in Bavel does not work. Asks the Gemara, V'lo mahani? Are you sure that it doesn't work? V'harabba bar Rav Huna ki have a min sibahade de beirish galusa. Amar lav min. He was fighting with the beirish galusa. He was fighting when he got to Bavel, and Rabba bar Rav Huna, remember, was from Eretz Yisrael. Amar, what did Rabba bar Rav Huna say when he was fighting with the Reish Galusa? Amar, lav min naichu nekitna rishusa. I didn't get rishus from you. Nekitna rishusa me Abba Mari. The Abba Mari may Rav, the Rav may Reb Chia, the Reb Chia may Rebbe. Those are fighting words. That's adorable that you guys have smicha over here in Bavel, but I got mine from a direct descendant of Rebbe. I'm in pretty good straits right now, and that means I have smicha. You guys should listen to me. So says the Gemara, much as that was a good argument in words, it was a good chess move, but b'milsa de alma hu de okim lahu. He was just talking. But l'maisa, it's still the din that if a person got smicha in Eretz Yisrael and they tried to paskin shilas in Bavel and made a mistake, they would be on the hook for that. And that was the case there. Asks the Gemara, if in fact the smicha from Eretz Yisrael doesn't help when you're paskening shilas in Bavel, Rabba bar Chana Rishusa Denokat Lamali. Why did he even bother getting it? He knew it wasn't going to help when he went to Bavel. What's the value of the smicha? Says the Gemara, he got it le'ayoros ha'omden al ha'gvulin. There are some cities that were outside of the borders of Eretz Yisrael, but close to the borders. Technically, it's Chutz La'aretz. But still, they fell under the watch of a Rabba bar Chana type who was able to paskin shilas for them. And that was what he did. My Rishusa, what is considered to be Rishus? And here we begin to see a familiar language, right? On the klaf of people, of almost everyone we know who has smicha, it says Yore Yore or Yadin Yadin. Why the double language? We'll see right now. Says the Gemara, my Rishusa, ki avanachis Rabba bar Chana leBavel. When Rabba bar Chana was going to go down to Bavel, Amar le Reb Chia le Rebbe, Reb Chia said to Rebbe, Ben Achi, he said, Reb Chia said, the son of my brother is Yoreh leBavel. Son of his brother was Rabba bar Chana. Yoreh, is he allowed to teach? And the Gemara says, Yoreh. Yeah, he can teach. Yadin, can he be a dayan? Says the Gemara, Yadin. I did not know this until I was today years old, that this was where the language came from. Yoreh Yoreh and Yadin Yadin. I didn't know that. And I have Yoreh Yoreh Smicha. I had never learned this Gemara. I mean, I've learned it 20 years ago. I just forgot about it. But I don't remember this at all. Yatir Bechoros, can you, this is talking about being an expert in what's called a mum kavua. If there's a bechor, to exempt it. Rashi details this. We're not going to learn it now, since it's a long block today. Yatir Bechoros, yes, Yatir, you're allowed. So that was case number one of what Rishus meant. Now, Ki avanachis Rav leBavel, when Rav went down to Bavel, Omar le Reb Chia, Reb Chia said le Rebbe, Ben Achosi, the son of my sister. So that means that Rav was his nephew through a sister, which we'll soon see is not really true. Yoreh leBavel. Yoreh, can Rav paskin regular shilas? And the Gemara says Yoreh. Yadin, can he be a dayan? The Gemara says Yadin. Yes, he should. Yatir Bechoros, should Rav be able to tell the distinction between a mum kavua and a bechor or not? Says the Gemara, al Yatir. Here we have a distinction. So when Rabba bar Chana went to Bavel, he was allowed to paskin on bechoros. He was Yoreh Yoreh and Yadin Yadin, but he was not. He was allowed to be paskin on bechors, but Rav was not. The Gemara is now going to ask a host of questions on this last little bit of Gemara. First of all, my shna lemar de kakari ben achi, umay shna lemar de kakari ben achosi. Why is it that in one case he referred to Rabba bar Chana as the son of his brother, and over here it's the son of his sister? If you want to say that that's true, it's actually not true, because Rav was a nephew through the brother, not through the sister. The Amar Mar says, this is easier to look at in an actual Yevamos type of piece of paper, which we're not going to do now. But the Gemara says, Amar Mar, Ivo, these are all brothers. Ivo, V'chana, V'shila, Umarta, V'Reb Chia, these 5 boys, Kulhu, all of them were B'nei Abba Bar Acha Karsala Mikafra Habu. All of them were brothers. The piece over here that we don't know, we've learned it in the past, is that Rav was the son of Ivo. So that was the first name we saw there. That was Rav's father, was Ivo. So we have somebody saying that, wait one second, my nephew through my brother Ivo. No, but why'd you say Ben Achosi? It's not Ben Achosi. It's Ben Achi. It says the Gemara, Rav bar Achva dehava bar Achte. It's not true. It was actually like this. The way that it worked is that there were 2 marriages that happened in the Abba Bar, what's the person's name? The Abba Bar Murray, the not Abba Bar Murray, the Abba Bar Acha. Abba Bar Acha had one marriage, and Rav Chia was not born in that marriage. Iva was born in that marriage. And the next marriage was in the second marriage that took place was when Rabbi Bar Chana was born, and he had in that marriage that second wife had a child coming into the marriage, and Ivo married that person and had Rav. So Rav was married to his brother's half sister, his half brother's half sister. Okay, very confusing case, but completely mutter. Obviously, this is Rav. These are great people, but therefore he was a double nephew, one through a half sister and one through a half brother. Piece of cake. So that's why it said Barachosi, but Rabbi Barchana Bar Achua Dela Barach. By him, in the first case where it was mentioned, was only one direction. There was no weird case like this because it doesn't get much weirder than that. And by Sema, there's another reason why it is that we refer to Rav as Barachosi. It was actually a compliment, Al Shem Chochmaso. We're going to be learning until the word Gufa, about 12 lines from the bottom of the page. What does it say about Chochma? Says the Gemara. Look at Rashi for a second. Al Shem Chochmaso Shahaya Rav. Rav was Chacham Biyoser and Karile Ben Acho. So why Dichsi? Back in the Gemara top line, the pasuk says, "Amor lechachma." Say to those who are wise, Achosi at. That was a phrase, "You're my sister," right? Again, not a phrase that lasted through the times, but it is something that definitely is said in Sefer Mishlei. Okay, good. Let's talk about the next issue. Yatir bechoros al yatir. Why is it that when it came to Rav, my time that he was not allowed to be paskening on a mum kavua? If you want to say that Rav wasn't wise enough, he didn't know the answers, I'm not worried about Rav and his learning. He was fine. He knew everything. Ella, perhaps mishum delo bekia b'mume. You want to say that he wasn't an expert in all of the mumen, which isn't learning, that's experiential, seeing with your own two eyes. Says the Gemara, that's also not true. Amar Rav, shmona asar chodashim, for 18 months, gadalti etzel roa behema. I sat next to a shepherd. Leida ezamum kavu ezamum over. That is shimush. Sitting there for a year and a half, watching these animals with all their mumen, just to make sure he knew how to answer a shaila. Unbelievable. So again, why is it that Rav was told not to be matir b'choros? After all, he knows everything. What's the problem? It says the Gemara, because Rabbi Barchana was going, and he was less well known, and Rav was very well known. Rav won't paskin those shilos. No big deal. Rabbi Barchana will paskin them. Rav doesn't need to have that as an accolade, so he didn't get rishus to teach those things in Bavel. V'ibaisema mishum hagufe de Rab bekia b'mume tfei. Rav was actually such an expert to such a fine-tuned degree. V'shari mume de lo yade inshi. He knew too much because he has seen every mum. He lived in the stables for 18 months. He knew exactly what he was looking at, and therefore v'amri ki agavna shara Rav also the mishra mum over. Oh, says the Gemara. He knew with this is like hard for me to even understand. Don't you want that guy looking at your esrog? Like you should know. That's why we say koch de tera adif. To give a kula, that means you know more. So the Gemara was concerned. Next, we said yore yore. If a person, they were saying when they go down, can they learn? Can they teach basic shilas? And the Gemara says yore, they're allowed. Says the Gemara, igamir. If he's learned rishusa lama lila mishkal. Why do I need permission? So says the Gemara, a lengthy brisa. There was a story that took place where we, at the conclusion, will see that you had to get permission to learn even though you were knowledgeable. The Tanya, there's a brisa. Rebbe went to a particular locale. And he saw that people were kneading dough while they were tameh, which is completely asur, right? You can't do that. You're not allowed to do that. You're ruining truma. What are you doing? Guys, she's a nida, he's a zav, whatever the details were, you're not allowed to do that. Amrulo, they said back to Rabbi, Talmud echad balakan v'hore lanu me bitzaim ein machshirin. That water from the marsh, from this like disgusting water, I don't know who would want to use that, but we're very used to clean water. They were not used to clean water. Ein machshirin. That kind of water does not transmit tuma. So don't worry that we're tamei. The water we're using is not going to transfer tuma. Vihu, and really the person who taught them about mei b'tzaim really meant to say mei beitzim darash lahu. V'in hu savur mei b'tzaim kamar v'tau nami b'ha. Sorry, period. Mei b'tzaim kamar. So what happened? This guy came in and he didn't speak clearly. And he said, don't worry, mei b'tzaim is not machshir. And he meant to say mei beitzim. So all of this time they've been metame, everything. And then Rito Nami Baha, there was another mistake that these people made. Me Karmayon Ume Figa Psulin Mipnei Shehain Me Bitzaim. These are different waters. Rashi points out over here that these waters were they were rivers, rivers of lakes. In other words, they were long and they looked like they were running, but they were actually collecting water, and they were standing water and not flowing water. The Inhu Savor, they thought halfway down, right by the parentheses, that because they were puzzle for a chatas, because any water that's going to be used for this particular scenario needs to be a certain water, nami lo mechashre. They made another mitzushtel on their own that wasn't correct. Veloi hasam linyan chatas bin in mayim chayim. By a chatas we need flowing water. Hacha achshure kol dehu machashre. But any amount of water can cause for tumah. And Tana, a brisa, a corollary to this story is Osa Shah Gazvu. Rebbe then made a gzera. Talmud al yore ela imke notel reshus merabo. Because it's so easy to say something incorrect. You need to know more than just knowledge. You need to know how to communicate. You need to know how to pivot. What if the case changes by X, Y, or Z? What if the temperature is this, that, or the other? What if the water is Yad Soletisbo? What if it's Yad Nichvesbo? What if it's a little bit below? What is that number? 103, 105, 108. The poskim get very granular. You have to know how to paskin shilas. Good. That brings us to another Gemara. It says the Gemara, Tanchum Bered Rav Ami Ikla Lechatar. He came to this particular city. Darash Lahu, and he made a drasha. Mutter Liltos Chitin Bepesach. You're allowed to briefly soak wheat in water on Pesach, which sounds like a terrible idea, but it's mutter under certain circumstances. Amru lo lav Rav Mani demin Tzur ikahacha. Isn't this the shita Rav Mani from Tzur? V'tanya Talmud al yore halacha b'makom rabo im ken hayrachav kimeno shalosh parsos keneged machnei Yisrael. How is it possible that you're allowed to paskin a shaila like this? Your Rebbe is within earshot, not literally, but within 3 parsos. 3 parsos was the length of the machane of Klal Yisrael. And if Moshe was there, no one could paskin shilas that they weren't supposed to paskin. He was the posek. So let's say somebody asked me a question, and it was not a question of information, like which shoe do you tie first. That's quoted in Shulchan Aruch. That's not called answering a shaila. Just be clear. A shaila is not, what does it say in Shulchan Aruch? That just means we don't know Shulchan Aruch. That's not a shaila. A shaila is when you're asking something that isn't in Shulchan Aruch, and you need to apply your knowledge to something new. So let's say somebody asked me this question. Rabbi Robinson's my rabbi. So it's usher for me to answer a shaila like that. You have to go ask Rabbi Robinson. I might know the answer. It doesn't matter. That's this din over here. Oh, Amar Lahu, he said, oh, Lavadai tell you, I didn't realize my Rebbe was close by. You're right. I zip up. I'm not going to say anything. And similarly, he saw there was a man who was standing in the Beis HaKvaros. And even though his Rebbe was within the city limits, Amar Le, La ben ish ploni Kohen ata, aren't you the son of so-and-so the Kohen? Says the Gemara, Amar Le, yes I am. But Avua Dahu Gavra, the father of this man, referring to himself, my father, he says, Gava Einayim Haba. He had very proud eyes, meaning he couldn't control his eyes. And Nasan Eina Begrusha V'chilalo. He married a grusha. He's talking about his own mother, by the way, because he was the result of that, and he became a chalal and lost his kahuna. Now, in that case, we don't see in the Gemara why this is even brought. It sounds like a random story. But the Gemara, the Rishonim here, right, this Rashi, as you see, a very, very lengthy Rashi, very short Rashbam, but very, very lengthy Rashi. He details this, that if you look at just the second line, V'nira be'enai deha'asa lashminan afal gab de Rebbe Chia talmid de Rebbe Hava u'b'mekomo de Rebbe Hava lo cholak lo kavod le Rebbe milahafrish. Why was that allowed? So the Rishonim here write that the reason why he was allowed to say something is because lahafrish minisura, then I'm allowed to stop. I'm not a posek, but if you ask me a shaila, I can say, wait, don't do that. Aye, Rabbi Robinson's in the next room. No, lahafrish minisura, we don't play this game. The only time we don't do that is to answer a shaila that doesn't have isser implications. You're asking, well, how much tzedakah should I give in this case? So I'll say Rav Moshe Feinstein coupled with a tzeruf X, Y, or Z. That I'm not allowed to do. But if there's a shaila to be that you're doing something usher, I say you're a Kohen. What are you doing? I'm allowed to say that you're allowed to do. So that's how the Rishonim explained this case. Without the Rishonim, we wouldn't have no clue why this case was here. The Gemara says, and we're going to wrap up with this shortly, just 3-4 lines left. Pshita lepalga ha dika amar mahani. What if a person only got partial rishus? What does palga rishus mean? So Rashi over here says, the last second to the last short lines of Rashi lepalga, kigon Rav the Yohave the Yahive lahu rishusa lemeidan below lahatir bechoros. He only got a partial heter to teach. He wasn't allowed to answer cases of bechoros. So in the case of Palga, Haka Amar Demahani, that actually does work. He's technically allowed to answer any questions. Al Tnai Mai, what if it was that you can only answer shilas for a short period of time? That's what Rashi says. Al Tnai, first of the middle with lines there, Rashi says, Kigon Ad Shana O Ad Shnatim Below Yoser. It's like a green card for answering shilas. You're only allowed to answer shilas for a year. So Tashma, the Amar Le Rabbi Yochanan Le Rav Shemen Harei Ata B'Rishusenu Ad Shetavu Etzleinu. You're in our rishus until you come here. It seems like that you have to listen. Rishus nesunalach ladun. That's what Rashi says. You have some permission, but the dayan, the person, the Baal Masmich is allowed to put limits on your smicha. We're going to stop right here, and Emir Tashem tomorrow we'll pick up with Gufa. Wishing you all a beautiful night.